Today, Vintage King has teamed up with NAMM TEC Tracks to bring you our Meet the Maker series of panel discussions. This year for 2016, we'll be discussing modular synths with a specific focus on the Eurorack format, which is arguably the fastest growing MI vertical in the industry today. Allow me please to introduce to you our panel of distinguished guests. We have Dieter Doepfer from Doepfer Music Electronic. Please give a hand for Dieter. Dan Green from 4MS. Gene Stopp from Moog Instruments. Tony Rolando from Make Noise. Brandon Ryan from Roland Corporation. And William Matthewson from William Matthewson Design. I'd like to start by directing a question to Eurorack founding father, Mr. Doepfer. Dieter, if you could talk a little bit about how you conceptualized the Eurorack format initially, what criteria was the center of the format's development, and what was your line of thought on the way to its creation?
Yes. After all, the Eurorack was not designed by me, really. At this time, I was studying physics in Munich, and all the scientific instruments at this time were manufactured in that format. So the mechanical specifications, that means the dimensions of the front panels and the position of the mounting holes and the width of the panels and so on, were a standard in Germany at that time. And it was not called Eurorack at this time, because if you look at the specifications of the Eurorack, it's all in inches. So somehow it's crazy that it's called Eurorack, because the dimension, right, everything. If you write it down in millimeters, it's 2.5467 millimeters. In inches, it's 0.1, so it's much easier. So it's called Eurorack, but it's based on inches. The only thing I changed was the electrical specification, because the format that was used at this time used fixed dimensions of the PC boards. So they were 100 millimeters and 160 millimeters, and they used very expensive 96-pin connectors, and the backplanes were extremely expensive, a few $100. So I changed the electrical specification to what we now know. We used 16-pin ribbon cable with a 16-pin connector, and not a fixed dimension of the PC boards. So this was, after all, what we did. And the idea was to be able to offer an affordable instrument. If we would have used the complete standard, all the modules would have been much more expensive. But as we changed to this other kind of electrical specifications, we could offer everything, or I could offer everything much cheaper, because at this time it was a one-man show.
Is there any sort of parameters of the format that in hindsight, if you could go back in time, you might change?
Yeah, maybe there is one small thing I would change, because we used unboxed pin headers at the beginning. So the problem, it was because they are a little bit cheaper. If I would be able to go back, I would use the boxed pin headers, so that it's impossible to to plug the model in the wrong way. But I think that's the only thing I would change.
Okay,
yeah.
That makes sense. So this question is addressed towards the entire panel, and anybody jump in that has some input. But as modular synths progress more and more from primarily a studio instrument, long ago to instruments for live performance, how do you see that influencing the future development of the format? Dan.
You're asking how do we see as it moves more from just using it in the studio to using
as
it
it
live
becomes more and more common and more mainstream, the format to be seen used as a performance instrument.
Well, yeah.
What do you think in the future as far as, another way to sort of word it, as far as its performance and control, as things kind of progress more to innovative sequencers and capacitive controllers in this from maybe a traditional keyboard format, how do you see the future development going forward?
Yeah.
And how might in 10 years somebody control their modular setup that they're not currently?
Yeah. Well, I see like three main ways it's changing. One is like the actual cases.
Yeah.
More portable and more. I'm doing this like folding it down and carrying it off rather than a large. So things are becoming more shallow. And we have cases now, that close or like you can take apart in different configurations. So you can just carry it to the gig or carry it to your friend's house or whatever. And then also there's a lot more modules lately that do a lot of functions in once, which means you can bring less. It also means there's less that you have to patch because these are essentially pre-patched functions that very complex functions that are pre-patched versions of simpler.
Gotcha.
So this maybe it's more specialized, but if you're doing a performance that's maybe 20 minutes long or an hour long, maybe that's enough. And then the third way, which I don't see, I still think it needs a lot of work, is actual controllers. And we do have keyboards and we do have ribbon controllers and other things, but I think it could go a lot farther. Gestural controllers, more, I don't know what, infrared things, I don't know what, but I think we could do a lot more with that.
And that seems to be kind of a topic of discussion within the community. Does anybody else have some input on where the future of control might be going? William, Tony?
A lot more tactile things. I'd like to see more pressure sensitivity and maybe things coming out of the box for the Euro. You have a lot of great sequencers and tactile controllers already, but maybe some sort of body movement, gloves, things like that, maybe integration with virtual reality type stuff, as now that we have really cheap microcontrollers that are extremely powerful, and gyroscopes, things like that, someday will probably produce control voltages that could work.
Yeah. I think those kinds of things, whereas a lot of traditional musicians, I think, would be more resistant maybe to those types of things. I think the kind of mind of the musician and artist that's into modular synthesis would probably be more apt to adopt, those kinds of alternative type of controllers. So I do think controllers are a big part of it. The other, I think, is lighting and visibility in live situations, is being able to see what you're doing through, all the knobs and cables and everything like that. So I think whether that's integrated into cases or part of the module design, I think we'll see that as well.
Sometimes I feel like the really esoteric controls are something that the artist has to develop themselves. So you see that a lot in other music communities like Max MSP and Pure Data, where people are developing really interesting multimedia presentations that work with Max, for example, but are not exactly a commercial product. So I think modular synthesizers being such an open format, it's very easy to interface with them. So an artist could potentially build a controller that is unique to their style of performance or their piece of art and interface it with the instruments that we build.
Yeah.
So that, I think, would maybe be a more interesting direction for it.
Absolutely, yeah. And that brings up a good point. A lot of thriving MI companies, a lot of their product development is driven by the user base. I'd love to hear from some of you guys kind of what are some specific examples of where you've gotten feedback from a musician or a performer and it's ended up becoming a product in production that's been successful for you.
Well, I think that's very important, but sometimes you have to pay attention if the person who suggests it how should I say, do not only want to have it for him alone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or if there is really a market for things like that. In the past, we did some crazy designs, and I'm not sure if we sold 5 of them. Yeah. So you should have a few more customers who suggest the same thing to you.
Right.
And speaking about these controllers, that's really a very interesting. But for small companies, except maybe Roland, I don't know, it's a problem. The mechanical part of the thing. Yeah, we did a few alternative controllers in the past, where we used, for example, products from Nintendo. Like the glove, they had a glove.
The power glove.
And the power glove we had. And we built an interface for it with MIDI and CV out and so on. But as the glove was gone, the MIDI, our interface died.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we had another, I'm not sure if it was Nintendo, a controller, a remote controller. And before we could offer our product, the controller was gone from the market. So that's a little bit of a problem. And we asked a company in Germany that does custom-made gloves, but one of these gloves would be more than $1,000.
Right.
And I think that's a problem. You would not sell many of such things.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things we do with artists is we have most of Roland manufacturing is done in Hamamatsu, Japan, and we have a AR center recently created in Tokyo. So as artists come through, we bring them in. Maybe they sign NDAs, but there's engineers there, so they can talk to artist relations people directly to engineers, talk about what's working, what's not working. But it's an excellent point that you have to parse. A great idea that'll work for a lot of people versus something that works for one person and loses people jobs and things like that. So.
But that's what's kind of great about modular, because that one person, they can go and put together the system that works exactly how they want it.
That's
They
right.
can pick.
Right.
That's part of the
Yeah.
beauty, yeah.
Yeah, and then, like I said, it's very easy to interface modular. I mean, just about any signal you put into it, it's going to do something.
Do something,
So
yeah.
Developing some sort of controller on your own, if you really feel like you need some sort of specified way of directing the instrument, you could do that. It's not like trying to interface, something that's highly digital, like a software program like Ableton Live would be maybe a little bit trickier. So you might need a specialized product for that.
Absolutely. And I mean, the sort of infinite amount of possibilities that comes with the modular synthesis format. And do you see more and more requests as there's more these systems kind of getting into performers' hands, or maybe people that might not be super immersed in the modular synth community? Do you see more and more requests for features that like recallability and things like this that are more sort of performance friendly, if you will, or what have you?
Sure.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of
Yeah,
requests
definitely.
for recallability, and it's really difficult to integrate because of the cables and everything. But,
Right.
Yeah.
And getting all of us to agree on a specification.
But we have actually, though.
We-
And
yeah.
right now, actually, we launched a product at this NAMM called the Tempe that stores 64 complex timing arrangements, and it works on the same format as Williams' switch module, which allows you to store several different switch configurations.
Right.
Routing matrix.
So hopefully, maybe that will catch on.
Right.
And also macro machines. They have a couple modules that respond on the same. It's hard because with only 2 or 3 modules out there that are using the format,
Yeah.
it's not super exciting. But if maybe more people use it
Yeah.
and they can all talk to each other, then it becomes like control voltages and gates and stuff where it's fun to interpatch and have things talking to each other up behind the panel.
Yep.
But this will only go so far because, and I think some people that have asked me, about that, which we've implemented on some of our devices, but it only is going to go so far because an essential component of a modular system is that we have discrete modules that are patched together, and to completely override that, which maybe sometimes when someone asks that, they're actually saying, I want to be able to flip the power switch on, not plug in any cables, and have it sound exactly like it was last night,
yeah,
and then I
that's
want to
never
spin
gonna
it.
happen.
You know,
Never
and
gonna
so
happen.
maybe
Right. Never.
it's never going to happen,
Well, it's
right?
against the spirit.
Oh, you
Right.
could
And
use
it changes, and it would ruin it too. It would ruin it. So we
Absolutely.
need some of that. But then there's other things like the Tempe module, for instance, like where, or like on our we have a module where you can program in custom scales, and you don't want to have to go and tune all these things again. So once you tune
Right.
it, you can save it. You have it there.
Yeah.
But
Oh, how about a robot?
you do the robot to do it for you.
Yeah, do it for you. Or he does all the patches.
Now this we have an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes 1 hour, but it,
Yeah.
We had
It takes
considered
6 hours to program the robot, though.
right. It's the ultimate preset.
We considered a patch boy service.
Yeah,
Patch
boy. Yeah, patch boy service.
It's like a ball boy in tennis games. It runs out, gets the ball, it runs out, and
Well,
patches
the
the
sales
synth
are
for
going
you.
Could hire,
down.
we
will
would train him, and then you could hire him, and then he'd fly him.
Like a page turner or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, but while people are asking for presets and completely understand, especially when you're doing live performance, there is a certain, I think, credibility that an artist gets, or a certain respect, or because of that element of danger. That, you know, they're up there. It's the total antithesis of, you know, just hitting play on something and,
Right.
you know, popping champagne
The
corks. or-
improvisational aspect of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
If I could
exactly.
add, I mean, this thing that I was talking about, that WMD and that macro machines are also using, it is by no means something where you could walk up to it and hit.
Right,
Yeah, yeah,
right,
It's still,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still a bunch of jacks on the module you got to patch out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
Yeah.
so
It's really more of a way for you to be able to set everything up and then maybe change some parameters so that you can get more out of your modular simultaneously. Or, you know, you have parts that you can then change to transitions so you can do your music in different parts, play longer without having to change a lot of patch points.
Yeah. In a sense, these tools that allow us to change between one complex state to another just allow us to make even more complex things.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is the opposite of what sometimes people maybe want. They want it simpler.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it really just makes it, probably actually just makes it harder to use, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I had the experience with the programmable modular from the 70s, and it's knob settings. You know, it's you make a single patch, and it's the same patch every show, and then you recall the knob settings, and it actually does give you a pretty wide range of sound variants. But it's not that kind of really out there stuff that the Eurorack community
Right.
is famous for
Yeah.
these days.
And that kind of, you know, that kind of brings up the question of standardization. And I mean, standardization of formats. And as things progress and modules kind of do get more out there, and you have these other new developing control instruments and all this sort of direction. In the same way, sort of the AES Society, you know, has standardized professional audio, well, to a certain degree, you know, for over the years. Is that something that's going to need further development in the modular synth community as we kind of progress? Or do you feel that's a self-governing thing? Is that the community self-govern itself, or do you need a governing body?
It's not going to happen.
There's no government.
That's against the spirit one more time. Yeah.
Yeah, if there was a governing body, there'd be an equally sized rebel governing body that would, be
rebel army
making just
would
as cool
overthrow it.
things, and it would,
I love it.
One of the things that I've noticed about the presettable modular synthesizer is the presettable settings, in addition to a row of switches that connect or disconnect certain patchboard combinations,
Yeah.
that really multiplies the possibilities sonically.
Right. Right. That makes sense. And you know, so Brian, I'd like to discuss with you. So Roland's inclusion in the or entrance into the modular synthesis market. I should say they have a rich history of synthesizers, both more integrated and modular.
Yeah.
But the recent release of Roland's Eurorack modules, what do you? And of course, Roland being the largest sort of company within the community now, offering product. What do you think Roland will sort of bring to the community that may not have been present previously?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, you know, when we talked about doing this, you know, we really wanted to help make Eurorack more widely known, widely accepted. We really wanted to kind of, you know, not do any damage to the community that we saw was so vibrant and exciting, and really try to make it maybe more widely. We have customers that go well outside of modular. I mean, Roland makes drum kits and pianos and all kinds of things, and some of these people don't understand modular at all. Maybe they don't even like it, but I think we can maybe bring modular to a wider group of people, and I think that helps everybody. So that's probably the biggest thing. Maybe some of the mechanical aspects of maybe controllers, I think that we would have something to offer because we have a lot of different controllers. Things like cases, power, those types of things, I think we can help with. But, I don't want to say legitimize because it's completely legitimized, but I think with some people, when they see something like Roland, they go, okay, maybe that's something I've been interested in. And maybe now that's something I feel comfortable enough to get into. And as we know, with modular, it never stops with, whether they buy a System 500 or whatever it is, they will buy other stuff from other manufacturers. I mean, that is, and we have never had any desire to have somebody have an all Roland modular synthesis system. So I think we can just bring wider consciousness and a wider maybe acceptance to what we think is a really just amazing, vibrant community that's really, I think what we see is kind of the future of synthesis.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would really say this is almost like a golden age. Some people I think thought it was a golden age, but I think now is the golden age of synthesizers.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of sort of the golden age, I mean, Gene, I'd like to ask you a little bit about the development. One of the more exciting things in the last few years, of course, that's come out in the modular synth community is Moog's reissue of their classic modular series. Maybe talk a little bit about that process, developing the reissues, and what that sort of brings to the modular community that may have not been present previously.
Well, we had access to all the original factory documentation and engineering drawings, things like that. And after a little bit of research into parts availability, we discovered that we could actually move forward with it, so we chose to do that. It's safe to say that it's not a clone and it's not a reproduction, it's just a resumption of production. We found all the parts. This is something that would not have been possible 5 years ago. The increase in online community, parts availability, parts searches, and things like that. So everything was a green light, so we went for it.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I mean, it comes with those classic, the classic systems, and sort of feeding the continuation of integration of Eurorack with those classic systems and development of 5RU format modules and companies bringing more and more of those modules out. I mean, do you foresee Moog, that's something Moog kind of continuing with, like developing modules in the format that sort of continue to push the boundaries of what can be done?
I think it's certainly a possibility. One of the accomplishments of resurrecting the original circuitry of the Moog Modular 900 series was an understanding of why it sounds the way that it sounded. And with that understanding, as we were saying a little bit earlier, the community of Eurorack is about diversity and putting stuff into your system because I want that tone. I want a Roland filter, or I want a Moog filter. And so that was one of the driving forces behind the Mother 32, which is the first Eurorack production. That was, I've got this tone, and I want a Moog tone. I want a palette of sounds.
Absolutely.
So doing the 900 series modular enabled us to know what that tone is and incorporate it into the Eurorack format.
Yeah, and I mean, the Mother 32 certainly has been a very highly anticipated product. And Moog's entrance into the Eurorack format and semi-modular device that offers a lot of functionality at an accessible price point. Certainly there's some of that technology has trickled down from the classic modular devices to the Mother 32. Directed at Tony, Dan, and William, you're known for producing modules that particularly break the norms of modular synth design and layout. And I'd love to hear a little bit from each of you on your design philosophy and approach. Like, where do you start from? Do you start by sort of coming up with functionality, the control panel, and then take it from there, or are you starting with circuits and then kind of working outwards towards the control? Like, where do you begin, and what does that process look like for you? Start with William.
It depends on the module. Some things that I developed quite a long time ago were like a conceptual idea first, and then see if it works on the breadboard, and then tinker with it, play around with it. That was before I totally knew what I was doing with circuit design. Not that I totally know now. None of us probably totally know. But just tinkering, kind of making a little like phase lock loop circuit bend it a little bit, see if it sounds good. Once it sounds good, you see if you can make it into a panel design and see if it'll fit. And kind of normally goes that direction from the circuit to the panel. So sometimes more modern stuff is going backwards, I want a circuit that does this, I want a module that does this, here's a certain need. Like when we did a collaboration with SSF that is kind of baseline modules, and that was designing a whole bunch of front panels first and then figuring out the circuitry for it, which was a fun way to go. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And Tony?
I usually start with a description of operation, which is just kind of like an essay form, handwritten or typed into a computer about everything that you want the thing to do. And then I have a small group of beta testers that I work with. I'll kind of send it out as an email, and we'll talk about it a little bit and see if it's something that's actually worth producing. One thing I don't want to do is make something that's really easy to recreate with existing modules. Sometimes you have to do that. I mean, just to fill out a product line, you might need like some utility stuff there to make the systems work well. I'm talking more about developing new, exciting modules, and something like the herb verb. You almost prototype it in your mind first and have a conversation about it. Try to see what boundaries you could push, what you could do that hasn't been done yet. And then usually I try to get to hardware as fast as possible. Away, the breadboard's awesome, but you get up to get a cup of coffee, you bump the table and come back and it doesn't work anymore. So, I try to I'm one of those people that's willing to pay like $900 for 2 4-layer circuit boards because I finished it. Okay, I kind of want this in 24 hours. I kind of want it, and I want it delivered FedEx early AM so we can have it and start putting it together immediately. So put that together and then start testing it as fast as possible, get many people to get their hands on it. But again, I keep my beta test crew pretty small and having to be more and more like, I guess, kind of tight-lipped about things because I think in the past it was really small community, and if things got out, people didn't really get too worried about it. But now there's so many people that watch what people do in Eurorack. If they find out you're working on something, then it's just like, oh, you're teasing us. When's it going to come out? When's it going to be ready? So you try to kind of keep it tight-lipped as much as possible.
And Dan, tell us a little bit about your philosophy.
Yeah. Well, normally I start with what's missing. So I'm making music, and then I just need, there's this hole here. I just need something that can do this, and so usually that's what inspires me to start working on something. And yeah, I also go to hardware as quick as possible. But sometimes I don't know where I'm really going, and I start making a thing, and then I realize, oh, this isn't a filter. This is a resonator. And then I realize it's not really a resonator, it's a chord machine. And then I realize, and then as it goes along and it progresses and it develops, and then as long as I'm making the music that I want, I guess, with it, which is just to myself, along with headphones or little speakers. I'm not performing for anybody, but it has to make the sounds. And I don't always know, what I'm actually doing. Things fork sometimes, and I end up following some meandering creative process. And I guess like Tony said, it's also important to kind of keep that tight-lipped because I do let people know what I'm working on too much maybe, and then I'm still getting hounded for something I said, oh yeah, I'm working on this new thing. And yeah, 2 years later, people were like, "You said when's it gonna come out? Where is it?" I was like, "Well, I set it aside because I started working on this other thing, which is really cool. You want to see it?" Like, no. What's the thing you'd mentioned?
That's
Sorry. Yeah.
It's a problem for all of us.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think. Yeah. And if you tell the people that they are working on something, there are so many suggestions. We have big problems with our trigger sequence. Not really problem, the trigger sequencer. Actually, it was ready 2 years ago already. And we showed the first prototype, and they said, "Hey, this is missing, and that is missing." Okay, we did the first redesign. And on the next show, "Hey, how about this and how about that?" And so we said, "Okay, last fall, we stopped all this creative design, and now we realize it. Because we have modules where there's so much discussion that the module dies. Yeah. We have Yahoo group where for some modules there was so many discussions and so many such suggestions that we decided to stop the design. Yeah, and in the meantime, I offer. It's different for the modules. There are modules which I designed totally alone in my room and do not ask anybody, and I release it, and it's a success or not. I don't know. Yeah. And there are modules which are suggested by musicians which I know and which I like. For example, the Iceland band Gus. They say, "I need on stage this module. I can't see it from any manufacturer, and I want it." And I know them. I know they play 3 times a week live on stage with the A100 system. And if they tell me they need this module, I'm sure they need it, and then we design it. Yeah. And the other way is ask the community, but that's really sometimes a problem because there are too many different ideas, sometimes going to opposite directions, and you have to pick out the right one. Yeah. And independent which you pick out, it's never the right one because the other ones wanted to have the different version. Yeah. So that's really a problem for all of us.
I think it's like art, you know, with art, any kind of art, music or whatever, it's soliciting opinion sometimes is a good thing and you take it in, but sometimes you just have to have the courage of your conviction and say, you know, be damned with what everybody thinks, and sometimes those are the greatest things.
Right,
you know?
Absolutely. And Dieter, having so much experience in modular synth design and such a breadth of legacy products, is there anything you sort of focus on or a strategy you have for sort of keeping your ideas fresh and keeping moving on as far as your development of concepts of design?
It's difficult. That's really difficult. It's, for example, we do not have plans for the next 5 years. We plan for the next few weeks. So we already had products which we said, okay, we will offer it next. And then came so many other ideas which are much better that this product, which has been already announced, has been shifted to a later date. So it's really, for us, it's difficult. It's really difficult to say. No master plan. There's no master plan for us.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's improvisational, just like the format. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear just a bit from everybody about, of course, without spilling the beans, we're talking about being tight-lipped on new product releases and things that you might have in the works. But love to hear from you, sort of, if there's anything on your bench right now that you're super excited about that you can talk about, or just concepts or directions. William, is anything that specifically that you're super excited about, kind of in development?
Yeah, everything that I'm working on.
Everything.
I'm very, very excited about it as I'm working on it, and then usually something will come along that'll either kill it or it just doesn't work and it changes, and then I shift to something else. Right now, we have a mixer that I'm really excited about because it doesn't have that much CV, but it's great for making transitional live music, for bringing a lot of patch points in and changing your patches in the middle of a set and being able to do really a lot with not that many modules. So we're working on that. I'm very excited about that. Right?
Awesome.
Yeah. And then one of my employees
is an apprentice, and he's really into learning his own electrical design and wants to make modules. And he had this idea, and I got to teach him a little bit. I handed him a schematic for a filter and a SSM 2164 data sheet, and I said, now you figure out what this can do to make these resistors change. And we went back and forth, and so teaching him has been really fun for me, and we're turning it into a great product.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else have something on the bench that particularly excited about that you want to relay, or? It's all,
These are all
top secret.
All secrets.
If I say it,
Not really.
next year someone will ask me, where is it? So.
I mean, I'll say, as for recent stuff, the other day we just released a bunch of we have these digital effects modules, Demora, Torcido, and one of the kind of bizarre and interesting things about them is that you have these sort of, I call it sort of meta modular, in that you have a modular unit that has a bunch of virtual submodules inside it. We just released a bunch of new ones, and I think we'll keep, while we're exploring, of course, analog Eurorack, I think we'll keep exploring this sort of idea where someone can get one thing and they can sort of design virtual modular systems inside of a piece of hardware and really kind of design almost their own Eurorack module with just an iPad and some software. So so that's something I think we'll keep moving towards while we're kind of exploring our legacy and and trying new things.
That's interesting, absolutely, yeah. So, well, we're just about out of time, and once again, my name is Ryan McGuire with Finish King Audio. Look for some development soon as far as our continued involvement in providing these fantastic products to our customer base. I'd like to thank our panelists here. If we could get a round of applause for these fine gentlemen.